Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Berea. Really happy to see you here for more than one reason. One of the reasons is that this is a relatively new facility. We just opened it up in May. And our dream was to convert this, it was an art studio and gallery, into a gathering space that the community could use, that our friends could use. That people that want to come in from out of town can conference and convention in Berea and be able to gather in a really nice space like this. So with that being said, I got to give credit where credit's due. You all know Donna Angel, our business development director, right? I'll sound the check, but Donna did the ordering. She's the one to thank for sponsoring and for the food and all the goodies. Which I also want to credit Donna with what you see around you. One thing that I think I've been pretty good at is knowing when I should get involved in something and when I should step back and let somebody just take the ball and run with it. As far as the decorations of this building, this is Donna Angel's wheelhouse. Everything that you see in here has been chosen by her and placed in a particular spot for a particular reason by Donna, and without a whole lot of input. And my job was to stay out of the way and let Donna work, let Donna cook. So Donna, thank you. I want to acknowledge that publicly. And if you, I don't know if is there a tour plan for today to get around?
Anyone that wants to.
Yeah, I want, if you can, please stay because you're going to see so many things about Berea, about Appalachia, about Berea College, about how Berea and the college have walked the path together over our history. Berea College actually preceded the founding of the city by 35 years. Berea College was founded in 1855, and I won't go into the history. The city wasn't founded until 1890, wasn't incorporated. So we truly have walked the path together, and our history is a little different. You know, usually the people are there, and then the college comes to educate the people, right? In this case, the college was here first, and people came to work at the college, and then the town grew. So it's a unique history. I hope that you enjoy your time here in this building, that you'll be able to get around and see some of the arts and crafts. We are known as the folk arts and crafts capital of Kentucky. We're very proud of that. And the other thing I want to do, just to make sure that you know you're always welcome here, is I want to invite you back. Please come back and bring your family or bring your friends and see some of the things that are unique to do in Berea. Not just the arts and crafts, but the outdoor recreation. I know a lot of you have been to the Pinnacles. Was the #1 hiking trail a couple of years ago, rated in Kentucky, rated by Outdoor Magazine. And that shocked me because we were rated over places like the Gorge, and I thought that was pretty cool. Berea College Forest is open to the public, and all those trails are accessible to you. Also, we have a lot of unique dining, and a lot of us in Berea see food as art. So there are a lot of unique places. He'll testify, Don will testify. A lot of unique places in Berea to go that you won't find a dining experience like it anywhere else. So I would encourage you to ask Donna, ask around, but please come back. We want you to come back. I hope you have a great conference. But before I close my remarks, I need to say thank you. Thanks for everything that all of you do. I know we have elected officials, we have appointed officials, we have people from the community. But what I see when I look at this crowd is people from Central Kentucky that are trying to make a difference in the lives of all Central Kentuckians. And that's sometimes a thankless job, and it's sometimes a hard job, but it's one that all of you, everybody in this room, has chosen to do. So thank you for being willing to be part of a positive effort to raise up Central Kentucky and to raise up the Bluegrass Area Development District region. Encourage you to stay strong, keep doing your work, and hope you'll come back. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
There's restrooms here. There's restrooms out in the main gallery. There's some back there. There's water and coffee over there. There's juice there. I don't have my agenda in front of me for the timing. So our next is Mr. Hasan Davis.
Morning, y'all. Good morning. Everybody hear me?
The microphone works. I'm just a football mom.
Yeah,
so
I think I'll be all right. I wander around too much for microphone. My name is Hasan Davis, and I'm really excited to be here this morning. I've got a lot of things I want to talk about. I've got a big old slide deck with like 200 slides in it, and I'm very ambitious this morning. So I just want to let you know I'm also ADHD, dyslexic, and dysgraphic. So everything that I planned is just a suggestion, and we'll see where we go. I'm excited to be here for a number of reasons. My name is Hasan Davis. I am the former Commissioner of Juvenile Justice. I ran Kentucky Juvenile Justice for 6 years under Governor Steve Beshear. Our friend Mike Riley back there was a huge part of my team back in the day. And I'm excited. I was excited about that work because, in my opinion, it was the ability, the opportunity to figure out how young people who fall out of grace, out of space in our communities get back in. Unfortunately, what I can tell you is it doesn't always work like that. Too often, this system takes more than it gives, and young people and families pay for it. I'm excited to be here because I want to talk about that and some of the challenges our young people face as we think about how we support them moving into productive work, productive community members, being people who are contributing to the amazing things that we want to have across our central Kentucky region. My name is Hasan Davis, and I believe that every child has a story and every story deserves a hero. That's what got me to this work years and years and years ago, believing that there's all these tragedies and trauma going on in the world, and somebody's got to stand up. So many of us lean into positive and powerful work because we see a need, and somebody's got to do it, and look in the mirror and say, I am somebody, at least today, at least in the moment, at least for this person, this community. And that's a great place to start, but it's a limiting belief because it leaves all the power in the hands of those who are capable instead of creating, generating power further down. And so we're going to do evolution. At some point, we have to create spaces where everyone gets a chance to come do their own story. And I want to talk about that and how that process could work. But to become a hero, they need skills, supports, connections, opportunity, and a belief in their ability, capacity to be all those things. All anchored in systems that see them not as a risk to manage, but as an asset to grow. My name is Hasan Davis, and out in the world, they call me the hope dealer. Person that believes beyond reasonable expectations and the possibility of what happens when people who choose to, don't have to, but choose to engage in somebody else's success, somebody else's possibility. And I want to talk about some things early in the system. So I'm going to hit through the data dive. Not going to be deep, cold some of it out, but I want to talk to them about what happens with our young folks, because I think that is the thing that is really driving lots of my energy and work around how we reimagine workforce, reimagine supporting young people into adulthood, reimagine our communities. So I'm going to talk about suspensions and some of the things that happened in the school. One of the big preambles to this, and again, this is just my brain moving at light speed. I want to be really clear. There are some drivers across our communities, across our neighborhoods, across our counties, across our state, across our nation that are indisputable. Young people navigating the system, especially after COVID, especially after the last 5 years, fallen deeper into some challenging tracks. What we know is that young people who navigate the world with diversity of ability, neurodiversity, are young people who are more likely to experience challenges in school that start to remove them from the creative career pipeline. Young people who navigate poverty at high levels, same thing. And young people of color. No matter what the conversation is, no matter how you slice it, if you look at data, I'm not talking about anecdotal, I'm talking about the data across our communities, across our state, across this nation. Those three things drive young people into chaos. And if we're not looking at those with intention, if not looking at those data points and disaggregating, if we're not making a commitment to look at the minute pieces so we understand what's broken in order to fix it, then we don't do anything different. And so with those three drivers, young people find themselves dealing with suspension at higher levels across the board. Young people in our poor communities find themselves being removed from educational settings for the same behavior that they see other people doing. They call this poverty discipline. It's this phenomenon where somebody says, if I punish you hard enough for being poor, for not having an alarm clock, for not getting up early enough, for not eating before you come to school, because mom and daddy are cranked out or somebody locked up or somebody had an all-night fight session. If I punish you hard enough, you say, I hate that so much, I don't want that so much, that I'm gonna do better. I'm just gonna correct everything about myself, and that's really not how it works, but there's still this phenomena that continues to push that. Because the research shows that young people who experience suspension are more likely of those young people in those categories, and each of those kind of becomes an exponential multiplier. They have a harder time moving forward because suspension leads to expulsion, expulsion leads to dropout, and dropout leads to chaos. The data tells us that a high school dropout is 3.5 times more likely than a high school graduate to be arrested. High school dropout is 8 times more likely than a high school graduate to experience incarceration. 63 times more likely than a high school graduating college going peer to experience long-term institutionalization. So when we talk about how we build a robust community, it needs to start with a commitment to education. I saw on the agenda some conversation about early childhood, which is so amazing because that's one of those things that we have to keep pushing. Continue to build and support young people at every level of their engagement and development for the possibility of what they can bring. And so when I talk about this, all those things drive young people into justice justice because once we see education fail, all the other things happen. I want to show this to you. About 10 years ago, there was a report that found that the average cost of incarcerating a youth for a year in the United States was $148,000 a year. With New York and California being in the $200-some thousand range, Kentucky was $100,000 a year. This is when I was leaving my role as commissioner. This is just after we passed the new juvenile justice bill in Kentucky, $100,000 a year per child. I want to be really clear because that number has actually jumped. And 2 years ago, they did a relook, and the average jumped from 140-some thousand to $290,000 a year per child. In New York and California, it's almost $400,000 a year per child annually to incarcerate them. Now, the reason I tell you that, the reason I think that's important is because we have to think about these resources, right? We think about the money that we're spending, that we're investing in a system that does not rehabilitate. Now, I'm telling you this because these systems have become very clear. Mike can tell you that when I was commissioner and we were doing work together, every day we were having conversations about how do we get more young people out of here into places, how do we keep them coming through the door first time juvenile detention alternatives so that they don't walk through the threshold of a door that locks behind them where somebody says, strip down, I'm going to search your body. But now it's almost $300,000 a year per child that we lock up, and we can do better. I decided last night in the middle of the night, because that's what I do, to pull the cost of education 2022, well, this is Harvard. Oh, that's not the one. This is the one, Kentucky. 2025 data. The cost of education, Center College is the most expensive. Ironically, Berea College is the second most expensive. $51,000 a year for tuition, which is funny because every student that comes to Berea gets a full tuition scholarship, but that's the value of it. And so looking at just across the central Kentucky region and a few of the other places like Louisville, it costs less than $50,000 a year to educate a student in Kentucky in college in a high education environment with lots of support and opportunity. You had another $10,000 or $15,000 for housing, another $3,000 for books, and you're still not getting to the amount of money we're willing to spend to lock a child up for a year. When you look at some of the other data, education actually plays a role as a resistor. But that actually tells us that a 1 year increase in average schooling for young people, taking a young person who at 14 said, I'm getting out of here, I'm tired of these people, I'm just gonna go work on the farm, and say, no, come on, hold on. 1 more year, we can push it out. I got support for you. That young woman who said, oh, he told me he loved me, but now I'm having a baby and I don't talk to him no more. I can't do this, I gotta go and do something. No, hold on. We're gonna get you good child care at a reasonable cost. We're gonna get you training, we're gonna keep you in school because we know you still have responsibility. 1 more year. Average increase in attendance starts to reduce major violent crime categories across the board. A 5% increase in just male high school graduation rates starts to dramatically reduce felony violent crimes. This is the kicker. The assessment that just that same 5% increase in male high school graduation rates would net us about an $18.5 billion in crime-related cost reduction. We'll say that again, $18.5 billion in crime-related cost reduction. That's the cost that we spend we call it the invisible cost of corrections, because it's not in the billions that we have in the budget every year. It is the cost for higher insurance premiums. It's the cost to rebuild a home, replace a car, put a family back together. It is the cost of trying to go through trauma navigation. It's the cost of more cops on the street, more bars on the windows. This is the cost that we pay, and it increases every year with no return on investment. That same 5% increase in just male graduation rates is estimated to net us about $1.2 billion in increased income earnings. That's those same young people that we talk about in the trajectory out of the system, completing, getting job training, getting certifications, starting a family, buying a house, paying taxes, taking their kids to Chuck E. for the most amazing birthday party ever. All the things that we want in our vibrant community are tied to educational success. Now, I'm going to put a caveat here because there's this debate about education versus vocation. And I don't know why there's a debate, because one leads to the other. They're necessary skills. When we talk about being college ready, we're talking about career ready, same skill set. Because it's not just that cognitive piece, it's also that affective piece. And I'm going to talk about that some. But I've got some slides in here that I've put in, I'm not going to go through. But incarceration becomes a serious impact point. There are a lot of things that happen to a young person once they cross that threshold. But one thing I want to talk to you about in particular is the impact on work. It's estimated that young people ages 14 to 24 in detention have decreased amounts of time working by 3 weeks a year. Just off the top. Entering detention and experiencing that starts to erode our workforce opportunities and possibilities. Department of Ed said 43% of incarcerated youth received remedial education service to detention did not return to school after release. Even those that did eventually drop out. And so there's this impact of incarceration. I'm again, I kind of get stuck in data sometimes. I want to share this with you. The diagram created by a woman named Dana Swayze. Dana Swayze works with the Minnesota Department of Juvenile Justice. She took all the major theories of development, having Gertz Kohlberg, P.J. Erickson, all those folks that we study for human development across emotion, psyche, physical. And then she took the adolescent brain science of the last 25 years and talks about adolescent development and how the brain develops in stages and has to go through certain specific success points in order to matriculate to adulthood, to be fully formed and ready to get into the workforce, ready to get into family building, ready to be a community member. And every time a young person experiences some trauma, some drama, some pain, moving through those quadrants, imagine that their adolescent brain clock starts. And no matter how good we are getting supports and services, how good we are calling the right folks and getting a team together, imagine over time that child might find themselves seconds, minutes, even hours behind their peer cohort. So when they get into that third quadrant where they're looking like grown people in our communities, they may still be actually reacting to the world out of seconds, even first quadrant development, because of all those development delays. They call it arrested development for a reason, right? Not that just cool band from the 90s that we like so much. But with that arrested development comes delays and frustration. Young people who look grown start feeling like they need our support, start feeling like they need more firm correction. And that's where we stop supporting them as children in need, and they become wards of the state. They become, as one judge told me, Commissioner, I send them to you because I need them to have an experience that is unique. And I thought that was just a really crappy answer for a judge for why they lock a child up. Considering all the data says that once a child crosses the threshold of the locking detention facility, immediately everything about their success trajectory drops. But it was a quick fix. But the truth is, with trauma being the thing that drives young people like this, locking them up doesn't help because trauma brains doesn't absorb that kind of information in the same way. It's not it just creates more trauma. So what are the mitigators? For me, the arts has been a mitigator, a big time. Creative engagement, one thing I love about being here for Berea, having been here so long, is that this thriving community that provides young people so much. I was on the board of the Berea Arts Council for several years, and my wife was for several years before that. And the idea of creating spaces where young people find art and creative outlets, the opportunity and access to things that are outside of the immediate urgency of life is actually valuable. So there's actually really good data that says when we have creative communities, when we have spaces where young people can know themselves and learn their own voice and their own story in creative ways, they become more productive community members. Because when I can see myself as valuable, I can see you as valuable. When I can see the art in my life, I can see potential in your life. And that takes us to the Feeling House. The Feeling House is part of Bloom's taxonomy. He has this whole cognitive domain thing that we talk about in education settings a lot. But he also talks about the affective domains and the physical domains. The affective domain, I call it the Feeling House. It's the place of connections, the place of relationships, the place of community. And we don't talk about it a lot. We don't focus on it a lot, but it's a thing that we need the most. Finding ways to engage young people in the possibility of their success is about social emotional engagement. So I'm going to pause here for a second because I realized the last couple of years, social emotional SEL, just as a thing, has become like a buzzword. Like a lot of buzzwords. There's power in me to say the whole thing. Because SEL, well, it sounds pretty ominous. Social emotional learning seems to make a lot of sense. When I was commissioner, I had this meeting, folks like you all, business people from across the Commonwealth, and my question was, what should we be doing different to create and prepare young people who are navigating this system to come back out and be successful in your workplaces, in your corporate offices, in everywhere. And one of the leaders stood up and says, Commissioner, I don't need you to prepare them to make the thing I make, the widget I widget, the cog I cog. But I need young people who can see teammates and value them and they contribute. What I need are young people who can manage what happened at home and leave it there so they can come and be a best team member. What I need are young people who can see themselves as valuable and therefore the value of the people that work beside them. So if you could give them those pieces, then I can teach them how to make the thing I make and do the thing we do. And all of that is social emotional pathways, but it's not soft skills like we call them, they're essential skills. These are actually the skills that we want every child in our community, every person in our community to have, right? The ability to manage their own mood, self-motivation and be prepared, empathy, to be able to value and see other people's challenges and have some sense of what that is, managing relationships. All of these is tied in us building and creating through our communities, spaces where young people feel known, loved, and inspired. Where every child can feel like being there means something. Hope is a seed planted in rocky soil with no knowledge of how deep its roots sink or how many its fruit will feed. The idea of hope is that we plant for the possibility. And that really is all it is. And some people are really concerned when they can't guarantee an outcome, especially in work, right? Metrics where we can't guarantee an outcome. Why are we investing? Well, when we do investment in people, human infrastructure, there's no set sunset date. It's just the possibilities that all arise from them. So sometimes planting those seeds are really important. And for me, when I talk about hope, I talk about humanity, optimism, perspective, and empathy. And they all kind of build to the core of each of us in our humanity. So my name is Hasan Davis, and I've gotten through the, oh my goodness, data parts of it. I want to tell you a bit about myself. Before I had the opportunity to be Commissioner of Juvenile Justice, I was chair of Kentucky's Advisory Group on Juvenile Justice and a representative to the National Federal Advisory Group on Juvenile Justice. I was vice chair of the Federal Commission appointed. Before that, I was a graduate of UK Law School. Before that, I was a graduate of Berea College. Before that, I was a soldier in the United States Army. Mostly because I got kicked out of Berea College and I needed something to do that didn't involve me running back backwards. I've had the opportunity to do amazing things. I just want to say that because I sometimes it's one of like a ring bell. Sometimes kids are like, it sounds like you're bragging. I was like, yeah, I am absolutely bragging. And one of the things that I get to tell people now is a couple years ago, I was invited to give a lecture to world leaders about how we use a hope framework to dismantle extremist ideologies across cultural, racial, religious, and social boundaries. I gave that speech in the ballroom of a castle, on top of a mountain overlooking a lake in Switzerland, about 100 miles from Geneva. And I sat there literally top of the world, being translated to 5 different languages with people up in the booth with headphones on. Thought it was the most surreal experience of my life. I'm proud of it because I want you to understand that's not how this story started, y'all. My name is Hasan Davis, and growing up, life was good. I mean, I was cute, right? I mean, that little picture down in the corner, in the left-hand corner, that's me as a little bitty baby. My mama said that she would take me to the store and walk around with me in the basket, and people would come up pinching me and asking which aisle I was on because they thought it was one of those porcelain dolls. And when I was in the 3rd grade, picture day, there in the top center. I mean, not everybody can pull off a butterfly collar and a polyester suit, but I was looking at that day, y'all. It was an amazing day for me. When I was a kid, life was good. Everything seemed like it was full of potential. People looked at me and said, "Oh God, look at him. I don't know, but he's going to be something." It looks like he got all that energy and all that stuff. He's just running around. And then at some point, things started to shift. Instead of people looking at me going, "Oh man, look at that. I wonder what that's going to be." They were like, "Oh man, look at that. What that's going to be." It's all about inflection sometimes. When I was 6 years old, my sister and I woke in the middle of the night with these loud screams. We jumped out of our bunk bed and ran to the living room to find my father attacking my mom. He was throwing her against the wall. He grabbed her up and tossed her to the couch and jumped on her chest and literally began to strangle her to death. Now, the data says that a woman who has been physically strangled by a domestic partner is 750 times more likely to leave that relationship through death and separation. My older sister Teresa ran for the kitchen, so I followed behind. When she got there, she drew the largest butcher knife out of the box she could hold in one hand. She turned to me and handed me the second largest knife. At 6 and 7 years old, we had to choose what are we prepared to do to save the person we love most in the whole world. And we charged back in screaming, "You get your hands off my," as fierce as a 6 and 7-year-old can. Now, what I want you to know about my daddy is my daddy back in the day was not a gentle soul. The bad boys called him bad boy. Now, I want to be really clear. My daddy passed a year ago, and he had been a minister in the Church of God in Christ for the last 50 years. And I believe that he died a good man. But that was not him. When he looked over, and I'm sure he was not afraid of the 2 shaking babies in front of him, but maybe he saw what he had become in his baby's eyes. Maybe for a second he regretted being that kind of beast, and for a split second he loosened the death from my mama's neck, and she took a deep breath and she dove for the phone. And that night, I watched my dad get escorted away in handcuffs. Shortly after that, separation. Separation leads to divorce, and things fall apart. We started moving from aunt to cousin to friend. Sleeping on couches, 5 in the bed, pallets on the floor, wherever we could, as long as we could, till mama finally got settled. Sometimes working 2 or 3 jobs to keep us in one place just for another month. Somewhere in all of that, we started on and off the food stamp rolls. Now, back in the day, we didn't have that cool credit card where you go to Walmart looking like you're a baller. We had the big envelope that came in the mail every month that had the brown $1 bill food stamp, the green $5 bill food stamp, the purple $10 bill food stamp. So you went to buy your food. People knew you were a welfare kid because you bought your food with a coloring book. But we survived. Mama had survival economics. She knew how to make money stretch and how to make it work for us. Beginning of the month, when we had all the food stamps, every morning before school, Mom would share a $1 bill food stamp out of each of the book and give each of us a $1 bill food stamp. We go down to the corner store, not the main food chain, the corner store. Miss Jones, Mr. Anderson down the block. Because if you go to the corner store, you give them a $1 bill food stamp. You got 5 cents worth of penny candy. Y'all remember when penny candy cost a penny? It's a myth now, but about 5 pieces of penny candy. Here's the trick to survival economics. If you went to the national food chain, you bought 5 cents worth of candy with a food stamp, there's a chance they give you plastic food stamp coins back. But Miss Jones, you give her a dollar bill food stamp, she give you 95-cent hard cold cash. And we get on the bus and we go to school, we call it jingling. Walking around all day, and everybody knows, man, I buy my own milk at milk break today, yo, 5 cents. I'm paying for it. I'll buy yours too. I'm buying lunch today too, 25 cents. All on me, yo. For a few days a month, Mama helped us feel like we weren't less than everybody else in the world. And by the end of the month, she had to do magic to make it work, but she did magic because she wanted it to work. Somewhere in all that, it became really clear to everybody watching that there was something wrong with that boy. In first grade, that boy's teacher one day decided that one who couldn't sit still, who couldn't stop touching things that weren't his, the boy who couldn't stop asking questions that didn't matter, the boy who couldn't stop standing on tables, reaching for stuff nobody else could see, that boy who couldn't take lines and make letters, couldn't take letters and make words, couldn't take words and make sense. That boy, who in the first grade was the oldest, he's a December baby and had to wait a year to go to school, but he still couldn't write his name. She decided that boy didn't deserve to be in her precious space. So one day, she grabbed that boy up and dragged him across the room, past his classmates to the back, that closet, the cold room, and keep all the stuff nobody uses during the school day. And when they got there, she told that boy, "This is your new classroom now." And on the way out, she locked the door behind her. And that became their ritual. Every morning she would drag him across the room into the box and tell that boy, "This is where you belong. I'm going to serve the good kids." And then that boy would punch the walls and scream at the coach and go home and tell his mama it was a great day. Because that boy knew mama just trying to make sure he in the same house for another month. Make sure he got at least 2 meals a day next week. And why wouldn't it be the place for a boy whose parents don't love each other, a boy who can't sit still and act right, a boy who can't write his own name, he's already 8 years old. So what they didn't know about that boy back in the day, all them years ago, is that he's what they call an engaged learner, an oral learner, a neurodivergent. If you put him in a room of high-functioning children reaching for the stars, he's on his toes all day and can't help but reach. But without that engagement, without that stimulation, all he can do is die. And so every day, that boy is dying just a little bit. Well, Mom always told me. One time she said, "Baby, there's 2 things anybody can do with a difficult situation. First, you can figure out how you got there, and second, you can figure out what the lesson of it is." If I knew how I got there, I was that broken boy. I don't know what the lesson is. One day, the teacher put me into the box. I'm screaming at the walls and punching the coach. Take a deep breath and dry my eyes and look up in frustration. For the first time, don't know why it took me so long, I realized that the code room is where all the other kids keep their lunch boxes. And all of a sudden, God's plan was revealed. Because Susie always had the peanut butter jelly sandwiches without the crust. Bobby always had fruit cups. And Jimmy always had Tang instant breakfast drink. Now, some of y'all are old enough to know why I'm walking like that. Because Tang is the breakfast of astronauts. If you're going to say it, you got to say Tang instant breakfast drink. So for a few days, I ate good. I was like, it's time to go to the coach. Yes, you got stuff to do today, teacher. Until one day, Mama started coming to school complaining about their babies coming home hungry. They came to investigate the mystery of the code room like a Scooby-Doo episode. And there I was with 8 lunch boxes spread around me like a buffet. That teacher was so angry, she grabbed that boy up, jerked him out of the box, all the way across the room, there was one seat right next to the teacher, that one special seat. So she can keep an eye on that bad boy for each other children's food. What she did out of frustration, anger, embarrassment, not out of compassion. Not a belief that every child has some gift to unfold in the world. What she did, it didn't matter why. Because what she accidentally did was restart my clock She created a way where there was no way. And sometimes all we need is a little bit of light, a little room to run. We got to run. So I started running from school to school, 5 different elementary schools. I started running from home to home, 13 different home placements before I was 13. Some of those are 1-month rentals. Somebody say, wake up, don't turn on lights, get your stuff, we got to go now. We'll get a new school tomorrow. Started running so hard. At 11 years old, I got arrested. Long, drawn out, and dramatic experience I need to get in detail about, but at the end of the day, after being processed in and having a conflict with some people there, mamas eventually started showing up to pick up their boys. And they all came in like mamas do sometimes, and the world is in chaos. I had to take 3 buses to get here, but lose my job because you got 2 more kids. The reason to lock you up next time, all that stuff that comes out in crisis. You know, most of it is hiding embarrassment. It's hiding fear and concern about what happened to your baby when the system gets a hold of them, but it all comes out as it's vitriol. It's funny because, maybe not funny, but it's interesting because so many of us in our communities, we have folk who are there to serve the people. But when the people show up in their true, authentic selves, you don't like what we see sometimes. I had a conversation with some of my treatment staff once about the fact that when parents come to them upset about what's happened with their babies that are locked in a locked place, and they say things like, man, I worked too hard for the letters behind my name and the plaques on my wall, you called me out like that, so if you're gonna have that kind of attitude, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I'm just gonna let you get them out of here. I said, it's pretty strange that we pay all this money to train customer service and people forward, but the people that we serve come to us broken, and so we use that as an excuse not to do our very best work and actually be successful in the job we came to do, which is make our community safer, better, more strong. Wouldn't it be much more powerful if we took a deep breath, say, ma'am, sir, I understand how concerned you are about this situation. You take a deep breath, I'm gonna go get you some tissue, and I'm gonna get you a Coca-Cola or a soda or a pop. Depends on where you come from, you gotta say the right thing, right? I'm gonna get you something cool and refreshing. And when I get back, you and I are gonna find a way to solve this problem. Because most of us show up to solve problems. But when the chaos of traumatized people come into our world, we kind of throw all our training out the window because we get. Does that make sense? I mean, it makes sense to me. And I say it because it was what happened to me all the time when I was first starting this work. So my mom hadn't showed up. And I was thinking maybe if I could negotiate with the police, they would just keep me for the night, and that might be safer for me. But my mama came in and she was calm, which is when I knew I was gonna die, because you know, when they calm, in fact, they already got a plan for you. She did the paperwork with the policeman right there. They said, thank you very much. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna die. Then I was like, okay, you don't go to the police station because they might arrest you if you get loud. We get outside, don't know what I'm gonna do. Got outside, I did what I call near, far, near walking. Y'all know what near, far, near walking is? So I'll tell you. Near, far, near walking is a strategic thing. It's where you walk close enough to somebody, everybody knows clearly you are with that person, but you're not close enough they can reach you in 2 steps or less. All right? It's a lot of science involved. You got to get distance. And I want that to put my eyes. She's still calm. I'm like, okay. You don't go to the police station parking lot, they may call social services, since like to the house, you open up a case. We get in the car, I don't know what I'm gonna do. My mama had to borrow a neighbor's car to come get me, though. I got in, no seatbelt on, hand on the door, and literally, I'm riding home just like this, because I might have to leave early, I'm ready for it. And she's still calm. So halfway home, somewhere in the darkness, I get the courage to look at her, and she is just crying these huge silent tears. Looks over at me. She says, baby, if you could see what I see, every time I looked at you, you know how great you already were? Now that didn't make no sense at all. And so I started trying to figure out if she was setting me up, right? Because it sounded like a good time to come over the top with a left or something. And I just sat there kind of feeling stupid because if she could look at me after all the data that's coming out about who I am in the world and still say that, then maybe I was one not vested enough in the possibility. The judge decided not to lock me up. like she did for my boys at 11 years old. Let me say that again. But instead, she put me on probation for the rest of my childhood. For the next 7 years, she said, you do anything that a irrational teenager, adolescent brain developing, neurodivergent kid who was navigating multiple home, multiple school settings, you're going to be locked up for the rest of your childhood. What I know now, having led these systems for the last 30 years, is that that's almost a death sentence. I also know now how lucky I am to have had my mama as my number one hope dealer. Because what she did, she started literally engaging me in the arts. She started enrolling me in drama class and martial arts and dance and music. I can't carry a note, but I was singing. She started creating opportunities for me to see myself and my value in the world outside of the chaos in my head. She allowed me to imagine. She took those same dollar bill food stamps and got 95-cent change back, and she bought bus tokens, and we would go downtown and we would go to live theater. I'll be really clear. People say, why are you taking your kids to live theater and using other people's money? That's for your subsistence, that's for your survival, and you shouldn't be doing all that. And my mom abjectly refused it. Because she said that her babies deserve to know that where they were was not who they were. That her babies deserve access to those things so that they know what their potential in the world was. And she was willing to take that risk to make sure. The odd thing is that the arts, all the creative engagement, those are the first things that we take away from young people navigating crisis, navigating trauma, navigating difficulty. But the data says those are absolutely the things that instill in them a sense of purpose and value beyond their current circumstance in a way that allows them to dream and imagine greater. 1 year into my probation, December, I turned 12. My birthday's in December, a couple weeks before Christmas. And my 12-year-old Christmas, I remember it because it was like the most amazing Christmas ever. My mother and my stepfather were both working. We had just moved from the efficiency apartment that we lived in, where mom and dad slept on the couch, the girls had a room, the boys had a room, to a 3-bedroom apartment where the girls had a room, the boys had a room. My parents, for the first time, had a bedroom. They were both working, and I remember so much because the Christmas tree was so tall it bent over on the ceiling. We had lights around it. We had all the giant robots and puzzles and Monopoly games from Saturday morning cartoon commercials under the Christmas tree. That was important because for the last few years, that wasn't what Christmas was like. For the last few years, we couldn't afford a tree. And so mom would take the Christmas lights and she would pin them on the wall in the shape of a tree. Then she would make popcorn, get out the needle and thread, and we would thread that popcorn and make the ornaments for our light tree. And then mama hit us with this. She said one day, she said, do you all know what rich people do? We were like, no, mama. We actually have no clue what rich people do. She's like, I'm gonna tell you, baby. And she hit me with this, but that's to this day. She said, rich people want for nothing. And that just struck the way she said it. Man, that wait, I was like, that's deep. So the most important gifts that they give to each other are ones that they make for each other with their own hands. She pull out all the arts and crafts. You'll be rich, baby. So we made gifts for each other. That was usually a great Christmas. Would be right before Christmas. The van would come through the apartment to pick up all the kids, take us down to the civic center. There's a big ballroom with tables as far as you could see, lined with food. They give us one of the compartmentalized styrofoam trays and say, you can go up and down as many rows as you want, anytime you like, eat as much as you can. And we would. We were so full we could hardly walk. They bring us up on stage and sit us in Santa's lap, take a picture. They hand us that picture and say, keep on shaking, baby. As you left the stage, the volunteer would give you a gift wrap box that said boy 5 to 7 or girl 9 to 12. And we take that home to them to the light tree with the gifts we made for each other. And that was usually a good Christmas. This Christmas, everything was working. Got the food in the refrigerator, toys under the tree. A few days after Christmas, we started back school. And after school, there was a knock on my door. My neighbor 3 doors down said, my house is on fire. So I grabbed my daddy's fire extinguisher, ran 3 doors down. His mom was making dinner for her husband, works the 3rd shift. Baby started crying. She went to check on the baby. A few seconds she was gone. The bacon grease and a fire in the pan. Bacon grease fire went straight from the pan to the cabinet above the stove. Went straight from the cabinet to the wall. Straight from the wall to the ceiling. Hit that installation. And as soon as it hit that installation, somebody decided not to put firewalls between each of the units. As a cost savings measure. But installation hit the ceiling. But it's hit family cost everything they own in the world. By the end of the night, I was homeless again. Early the next morning, I was walking to school in somebody else's shoes again. Somebody be like, hey, I remember that sweater. That's the sweater my grandmama gave me for Christmas a couple of years ago. You have to swallow down that pain that comes from losing other people's grace again and offer for thank you because I was thankful, but it didn't make it hurt less. But because mom didn't want me in my 6th elementary school, she kept me enrolled even though the whole family had to relocate. And I started a 4:30 a.m. ritual, wake up, take a bus to downtown, and the second bus back out to Camp Creek, walk to school. And after my 7th grade school year, I was enrolled in alternative school. And I was enrolled in alternative school for the next 5 years. In alternative school, I met a very interesting woman. Her name was Dr. Lorraine Wilson. She was the administrator of the alternative school. And I got called to her office one day. No, I got called to her office quite often. But there's one time I got called to her office. I got into trouble when I'm sitting there waiting for her to come in. Now, Dr. Lorraine Wilson was legally blind, had these glasses that magnified her eyes, and she walked with purpose because the world turned to shadow about 2 feet in front of her. So she was always kind of walking with this intense. I thought she was like a Jedi master, hiding from the Sith or something. But she comes to her office finally, and she finally gets around to her seat and sits down, and she's sitting there, and then she says, I know who you are. Now, just for your information, anytime you start a conversation like that with somebody who is arguably in trouble, it's not gonna go well. I know who you are is like the last definitive statement. So I was like, here we go. But then she said, and I think that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. That made no sense at all. So I sat there for a second trying to process it. And she just got quiet. And I remembered that she was legally blind and the world turned to shadow about 2 feet in front of her. So I did the eyeball check. And she just looking straight ahead. So finally, I got up the courage and I said, Lorraine, you know that it's Hasan, right? And she said, I know who you are. And I think that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. All that you can do, Hasan, make me a fool. But believe in such things about you. The first time my educational career, someone told me I was already great. But the worst thing I could ever do was give up, sacrifice being what I already am for something less. And it fired something up in me. It made me excited trying to figure out what is she talking about? Like my mom was at the police station. I was like, I don't know what this is, but maybe there's something to it. In class, Dr. Lorraine Wilson would do these crazy things like in math class, I would get frustrated because she called me an intuitive mathematician, which I think is a great title for any human being, intuitive mathematician, but I was still getting my math tests back and I was failing them all. And I would get frustrated and I would go to Lorraine and say, you keep saying that I'm good at math because I can actually look at a math problem and give you the answer up to pre-calc. And one day she said, Hasan, unfortunately, math is not about the answer. It's about the, some of y'all know that process. That's what she said too. I was like, well, how come the paper never has a line that says process? She didn't give me no credit for that. So I was still failing because I can't do process. I can do problem. I can do answer. My brain skips all the middle. And I would get frustrated in class. And since I was little, when I get frustrated in class, what I would do is I would find somebody close enough that I could tackle them and get drug out of class for being that dangerous boy because I got tired of being the stupid. But one day in class, I'm getting frustrated and in the middle of all this anxiety, Dr. Lorraine Wilson says, okay, everybody clear your desk. Everybody got confused and they took their stuff off the desk and she started. She was like 13 times 3 plus 1 divided by, she just started running off these random numbers and symbols. And every time she stopped, I had an answer. Every time she stopped, I had an answer. Every time she stopped, I had an answer. She started doing this 1 day a week. 1 day a week, I could sit there for the other 4 days instead of being frustrated. I'd be like, y'all just wait till Wednesday. On Wednesday, I am math god of the universe. She was teaching me to find my own strengths and gifts. After that social emotional learning, she was teaching me to value what I did have, then I could value what you have too. In class once, she taught psychology too. She's like, Hasan, do you think you want to go outside and run around the school as fast as you can? I was like, what? Yes. I mean, I didn't think about teaching 7%, so all I can think about. She's going to do that right now. She said, go ahead and do that. So she let me go literally run around the school. And I run around like 5 times. I was about to pass out. The time I came in, I was oxygen deprived. This weird thing happened. The whole world had clarity. You ever see that like congestion commercial, maybe Clarity when they first came out, and it'd be like the person's home, my life is so miserable, and everything's like fuzzy, and they're wandering around the day. Then they take the Clarity and like pull back the edge of the picture, it's like this crisp spring. The first time I saw that, I was sitting with my wife, that commercial. I was like, that's it. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, that's what happens to my brain when I can burn off enough energy to slow the world down. Everything gets sharp edges for me. Everything makes sense. Dr. Ray Wilson was teaching me self-management, that I could figure out how to navigate and control my environment in a way that allowed me to be successful in spite of my challenges. So all these gifts were going on. I lived at the school for the last 3 years. My senior year, I got called back to that same office, December. I just got off probation, turned 18, got called back to the range office. Sat down in that same chair. She sat across from me. And she explained that I just failed the class as we go into Christmas break, that I needed to graduate and would not be offered again. Because of that, she was going to have to ask me to leave my home, this place that nurtured me and made me feel like I could be somebody. Things fall apart. So I moved back home, moved back to the streets. I went back to what I was good at, but never wanted to be big guy in the corner. And I was. Me and my brothers, Derek and Sean, we ran hard. My best friends in the world, Derek and Sean. Derek's my foster brother there in the middle. He came to us when we were teenagers. We met and kept each other alive. Literally, I breathed my air into Derek's lungs and pumped hard on the side of the road once for 5 minutes. On the end of my brother Sean, my stepbrother. Sean came to us at 8 years old with cigarette burns and bruises over 90% of his body from his mama's friends. The only clear lesson he learned in the world is that might makes right. Sean and I shared a room most of our childhood, and every day for 5 years, we fought. Because in his mind, the only thing he had learned from his mama was that the only way you tell me what to do is if you can make me, even if it's somebody you love. I came home from alternative school once, and my brother Sean was still in the corner, talking real low. And I was like, what are you doing, Cass? Casanova, that was his tag on the street, Casanova. I mean, if you dress like Don Johnson, you ain't gotta be Casanova. I was like, what are you doing, Cass? He was like, yo, man, I'm talking to my girl. I was like, how you talking to a girl with wires tied around your head? So I took it from hello. I said, hello, it's my answer. Oh, snap. I said, where did you get this? He said, remember that old Walkman? You remember Walkman? I mean, before an iPhone, before an iPod, before a CD player. You had a Walkman, like 20 batteries. You was good for half a day, right? Walkman, I got my jams. Let's go. I was like, yeah. He said, I took that old Walkman. I took mama's broken telephone, and I took them apart. I started messing with the boards inside, so I got some static. I just kept messing with it. I got a dial tone, and I called my girl. I was like, wait. You made this? He was like, yeah. I was like, no. You made this? He's like, yeah. No. I want you to be able to the question. You made this. He's like, yes, I mean, I get that. My baby brother built a telephone headset, y'all. I mean, that's not amazing now, but we're talking about 1983. We have telephone headsets, right? You had that one phone in the kitchen. You mess up, you have to call the operator for assistance. He built a telephone headset. I said, Sean, you could be one of those electric guys. That's all I have, but it seemed pretty amazing at the time, right? And he just started laughing. He said, no, man, it's just what I do. We hang out at the house. Ain't nobody gonna be do this in the real world. And he got quiet. He said, bro, we don't get to be great in the real world. That's the day I realized I might lose my brother. And all that natural talent, all those gifts, imagination, and creativity, and still not think you have the right to be more than you have been. So I hit the streets again. But I realized that if I stayed there, I was going to be everything that I kept saying I wasn't. I was going to own all the labels that I've been given. I kept trying to push off. And so I had heard about this school in Kentucky called Berea. The alternative school I went to was a work study school where all the students worked, we built things, made greenhouses, did projects, offset printing. And so the idea of a school where you have to work, the idea of a school where you have to be poor to go there, and if they accept to pay everything, it's like, check, that's the only way I'm going. And so I've heard about Berea, and I sent an application to Berea, and literally 2 weeks ago, 40 years ago, 2 weeks, I had not heard from Berea College. Now, if you haven't heard from a college the week before classes start, most of you all understand that means something pretty clear. Having no experience in college, I had no idea what that meant. So I picked up my mama's telephone in the kitchen. I called Berea College Collect. I'm gonna collect calls because you get the book one just call. You know, it was like, so I was like, I called Berea College Collect, and the operator at the college answered. And she accepted the call, which I didn't expect, but she don't know me, but she's like, okay, I'll accept. I was like, okay. She's like, who do you want to speak to? I was like, I had not thought this far ahead. I didn't think people were going to just collect calls from strangers. So I was like, well, I would like to speak to the director of admissions. Go big or go home, right? And she's like, please hold on. I was like, wait, what, you're going to prove me with the director of admissions? The next voice I heard was John Cook, director of admissions. I was like, oh, hey, Mr. Cook, my name is Hasan. I live in Atlanta. I applied to come to Berea. Classes start next week, and I have not received my acceptance letter yet. So I'm just calling to see where it is. And I imagine there was like a deep, inaudible sigh. Like I can't believe I got to have this conversation with some knucklehead. But he was nice enough to go and pull my application out of the garbage can. And he came back and he explained the truth of Berea. Today, Berea is one of the most competitive application processes in the nation. We get thousands and thousands of applications each year for a couple of hundred spots, and this is the most competitive. And I've already selected all of our students. A few of them decided not to come, and I have replacements for them on my desk. I don't think it's going to work out for you. Now, here's a content clue, something I learned early. I don't think it's going to work out for you is not an answer. It's an invitation to answer yourself. Right? It's an invitation to say, oh, I guess I'm rejected, let me leave. But it's not a no. And so I said, sorry, Mr. Cook, but I kind of need to know for sure. And he is like, okay, Mr. Davis, I'll call you back and confirm that. About an hour later, my mama's phone rings. It's Mr. Cook. He has this, I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud, kind of says to himself. And he's like, okay, Mr. Davis. I think I'm like, somebody's like, just like we rehearsed it, John. I think we're going to give you a chance. So all of a sudden, I'm a Berea College student. I got to get ready for college. I am not planning any of this. I don't know what this is about. So I start putting all my stuff in garbage bags. I've been apprenticing to a screen printer for the last couple of years. Part of my mama's plans to keep me alive and out of jail. And the screen printer, his name was Bill Prankford, great guy. I always said he was like an old white dude. I realized now he's like 35. So I was like, he's very young and energetic. But Frank, I always thought he was eccentric because, he was an artist and he owned apartments and stuff. And I would help him with those things. But we were right before I'm leaving, I'm helping him out, doing some stuff in the apartment. And he kind of pulls up his old truck in front of this stack of stuff on the side of the road. And he starts running through it. And I'm like, I guess that's what old white dudes do, right? They can do that. And he finds this big, ratty box. He tosses in the back of the truck. 2 days later, we're having Hasan going off to college party. And Bill Pranker shows up. He's got this huge steel metal gray trunk with rope handles and a lock. And he says, Hasan, you're a college student now. And every college student deserves to have something to put their stuff And I made this one for you. And I recognized that old raggedy box that I was cutting them about throwing to the back. Look, I took all of my clothes out of the garbage bag in the mic trunk. And we load up the gremlin and we headed to Berea. And it's a gremlin, so we stopped in Tennessee for a long time. As my daddy figured out how to get it back together with duct tape and chewing gum. So we arrived at Berea at midnight, coming off the highway. Back then, we only had 2 lights between here and campus, and they were both flashing yellow. I was like, that's a caution light. Maybe we should just go home. We get to campus. There's a student locking up the students because it's midnight. And I'm like, hey, I'm a new student. And she's like, you know, orientation was like 10 hours, but you're not very helpful as a first impression. And she called around and they finally told me to go over to Bingham on the other side of campus. And I met the head resident there. And he said, we don't have any rooms left, but we've got bunks set up in the lounge. I guess for all the people that got there late. And so I moved my stuff in. My mama gave me the last $20 in her purse and said, okay, baby, it's time for you to decide who's right about you and who's wrong. You have to make a decision now. And she left me here. A few days later, I got into a room. We had to take placement tests and I tested into 0 level English and 0 level math. It means I failed both my English and math tests completely. And the entire first year would be remedial to get me up to basic. And I was sure my roommate would sleep every night. I would dig deep to the bottom of my drawer and I'd pull out my penmanship pad. Y'all remember those penmanship pads? Red line, blue line, red line. My mama packed a stack of them for me. And I would practice my handwriting for 4 or 5 sheets like I've been doing my entire life. And once I was sure my roommate would sleep, I'd figure out which class I had tomorrow, which one class I could read 4 or 5 pages over and over again, 4 or 5 pages over and over again, 4 or 5 pages over and over and over and over again, that I could absorb enough that I could get into class. And as soon as we start, I could jump up and say something brilliant. So it looked like I belonged there, even though I was confused with the rest of the class. I made it 3 semesters, just holding on, just praying that nobody would figure out I didn't belong. But after 3 semesters, they got called up, can't take it that long, and I got expelled from Berea. I went back home and I hit the streets. And my brother was right. We don't get to be great in the real world. After being on the streets for a couple of months, I was like, this ain't it. This is not what Mama saw. This is not what Dr. Rain Wilson said. So I wrote a letter to my mother from Fort Knox, Kentucky. Dear Mama, today I joined the Army. I see these people let me out, but I had to make a choice, so I did. I finished my basic training, my advanced training. I was going to go on to a regular Army, but my drill sergeant gave me some good advice. Because I was top soldier in every one of my training classes, and I also had the most write-ups in Article 15 disciplines in every one of my training classes. And he was like, Private Davis, that's not supposed to be possible, and it's not sustainable. Eventually, you're just going to be the problem. And I thought that was really good advice. So I rode out into the Army Reserve, got home for Christmas. January, we used to have short term here at Berea. Remember that, man? January was just 1 semester of just 1 class, 1 month of 1 class. But I got a one-way bus ticket up here, and I started going to Dean Hager's office, the Dean of Students. Hey, Dean Hager, my name is Hasan Davis. I used to go to school here. I'm trying to get back in. Dean Hager was very polite. He said, I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, but that's not going to be a possibility at this time. I said, thank you very much for your time, sir. I'll see you tomorrow. And the next day, I don't know if he had any register for him, but I came back and, hi, Dean Hager, my name is Hasan. I'm sorry, what you yesterday? Yes, sir, I was. I'm trying to get back in school, but I told you yesterday you could. You did, so you still can. Thank you, sir. I understand. I appreciate your time. I'll see you tomorrow. And the next day I showed up, I said, Mr. Davis, I'm sorry, exactly what you're doing. I'm saying, well, sir, this is the only thing on my to-do list. So the quicker you let me back into school, the sooner you can go do whatever else is on your list. He said, you cannot come back to school here, Mr. Davis. And then I called, if you knew Dean Hager, you know Dean Hager. I called him a liar. Because when I left, I had to go see him, because every student has to go see Dean of Students, because Berea's like that, right? He gave a speech that every good dean gives. Berea, the challenging place, most of our students are first generation, don't have that kind of rigor. There's a lot of new things here. We know that we're built for that. That's why we're successful with our students. And so when you're ready to come back, Berea's going to still be here, still committed. And every good leader says that, but most people who fail don't go back to where they failed. They go somewhere else, they make up a story, they change everything and pretend it never happened. But I came back, and so that's an anomaly. And so I called him out on it. He says, okay, I remember that. Let me make some calls, and once you come back tomorrow, I was so glad he invited me back because after 3 times it's trespassing, right? And I came back, he said, okay, I worked it out, got you back in for the spring. You're going to bring academic probation, labor probation, social probation, convocation probation. I was there, but I was on all of those and I left. So that's like breaking even. Let's do this, right? So I got back in, I started classes. I was talking to my professors about what I needed to be successful, and things seemed to be going well. But at the end of the semester, long story short, I failed the class I did, and I got expelled again. A lot of drama in there that I'm not going to get into, but 4 of it was that. I failed. And I knew I could go home again. So I moved to Richmond, worked construction, built that Super One food store that's now the Magic Mart or something, correct? Yeah, the Peddler's Mall. So the Super One, we built that. I lived right behind Recordsmith. And I said, I'll be back. And they were like, you ain't coming back. But a year later, I came back to Korea. Hey, man, you probably don't even. He was like, Hasan, you cannot come back to school here. And I was like, just hear me out. I was like, if you can let me just go and talk to the people. I mean, I understand you talk to the people, but if I can just talk to them, and if they tell me no, I can know that I've done everything in my power, and I'll leave here without any more conversation. I think that was the thing that sold me. He was like, no more conversation. Let's do this. And so I said, okay, you get 5 minutes with the scholarship committee. I went to him. I said, nobody's gonna look at a place like Berea to give a guy like me 3 chances and say, you are terrible people. What if I could do this? With everything about what Berea's mission is, everything that I believe about who I could be, I just need you to loan me $3,000. It was a Hail Mary. I just put it in. They were like, what? Now remember, Berea already pays everything, right? Highest education in the state. And I'm like, I just need you to loan me $3,000. They're like, are you crazy? This is the 80s. That's like 15, 20 grand. I said, there's this new computer called the Mac Plus. With Microsoft Write 1.1 with spell check and grammatic Mac. If I had that, I think I can get what's in here that I keep thinking is so good out. And you can see it too. And if it's good, let me stay. And if it's not, I'll leave. Let's leave 1 more second, please. Just like Mr. Cook all those years ago, for no good reason for a school that pays everything already, that they're taking some other kids that can transform their whole experience, having this in their life. They said, okay, you're going to be an academic probation, labor probation, social probation, convocation probation, and double secret probation. And you have to promise not to talk to anybody if you get kicked out again, which I thought was fair. And I was like, okay. And so I'm back in. I get my computer. I'm going to put my pen. I still got it. I carry around every class I get to. Bing, I set that baby up. First semester back, I made the dean's list, y'all. After I got off all the probations, I was voted homecoming king. Then I was elected president of the student body. Then literally got to lead the school play. And I was a cheerleader. I mean, I didn't start out to be a cheerleader. That guy did not start out to be a cheerleader, but there was this girl. And I was like, Claudia, where are you going? She's like, I'm going to cheerleading tribes. And I was like, me too. I did not realize it was such a thing, but now that I do, this is absolutely where I'm going. I was like, so let me get this right. My only job would be to throw beautiful women in the air and catch them in an auditorium full of people. Well, it's more coming on. That's all. Yeah, you have me at that. I'm good. Let's do this. And so I was a cheerleader. I was like the scariest cheerleader in town. Y'all been here? Scared for you. But I was finally in the space. World was giving you a chance to show who I could be, not just who I was. As president of the student body, at graduation, I gave the opening prayer and welcome. Sitting on the stage with all the dignitaries, I got to give the opening prayer. and took the podium. Looked up, time to see the usher escort my mama to her seat. And of all that chaos, I could hear it. If you could see what I see every time I look at you, baby, then you would know how great you already are. Sometimes, y'all, we have to speak light into darkness. We have to stake claim to possibility, to hope, and then nurture it with the possibility, not the guarantee, with the possibility that something more could happen. Because at the same time that I was experiencing this, my brothers were going the other direction. They were falling down the path that I was cutting for them, that I wanted for them, was not manifesting. Miracles are manifest by the presence of hope. And that's my boys. My beautiful boys, Christopher and Malcolm. Malcolm is 26 now, Christopher's 21. Christopher's a senior in South Dakota, cybersecurity and cyber ethics. Malcolm, straight up country boy. Monsters are made by the absence of hope. I want you to know about my brothers, my most brilliant friends, the best people I know. They're both serving life sentences. They've both been in 30 years now. Last time I went to visit Sean, the genius, he had given me a certificate, a master carpenter certificate to take home to my mom. And I was like, what's this all about? He said, well, I told him to give it to you, but I'm so frustrated. I was like, what? He said, I've been working on this jewelry box, and I finally figured it out, but it took me some time because I had to, I couldn't get the lock and key, to work. I was like, but I thought y'all couldn't work on it. He said, we don't. I said, wait. Are you telling me that you have constructed an operational lock and key system for a jewelry box that's made all out of wood? Oh, yeah. Hey, the kind of technical skill that gets locked away because we don't build communities to support young people going through crisis in a way that allows them then beyond it still be brilliant contributors to the things we want and need. My boys, last year we went to Vegas rodeo, and my twin towers, I call them now, 6'3" and 6'4". I'm gonna take a deep breath. I know that I still got some time, but what I want to do, and I don't usually get the chance to do, is take a deep breath and take a couple minutes to see if there might be questions, comments, or concerns before I get to the last piece of what I really want to say and some thoughts. Like Taylor, I'll stop right there because my brain keeps going. And this is an invitation, not an expectation. I just want to make sure that there's space in case. And then, like I still got 150 slides, y'all. I'm good all by myself. Any questions, any thoughts, anything in particular? Okay, if there anything comes up, let me know. So one of the things that I want to talk about is think about this transition in my own life. Is one of the privileges I had in the last 5 years to start doing specific coaching and training around workforce in particular. I worked with EKSEP out in Eastern Kentucky and developed actually like a 20-hour training for all of the WIOA staff out in Eastern Kentucky about how we engage, especially those disconnected youth, those young people who aren't in work, aren't in school, who are in our communities, and we need to re-engage them. Many of them, especially coming on these WIOA dollars that are focused on people coming out of the system or dealing with recovery. And so actually during COVID, I started to build up a whole framework for using the HOPE model that I use for coaching and training educators and social workers to really train folks in how to engage with this population. How do we draw them in? How do we help them tell their story and understand their story in a way that really allows them then to imagine what it means to go out and be amazing and powerful in the world. And so that was for me, a real shift in taking all the work that I've done nationally, kind of getting back, going into the region, and really working with folks on the ground. And so I had a chance to really spend time figuring out how to have those conversations with folks that the whole world has often given up on. How we find ways to see and hope dealers for them and provide them the kind of supports that allow them to move forward. I want to share a story with you. It's called The Race. My most recent book, and it's an epic picture poem. And it's the story of a kid who escapes difficult places. It's a story of communities that have the ability to see people not just in their moment, but to cheer and argue for them having access and opportunities to succeed or to fail, but having the opportunity. I based it on my own experience, especially with my mama and that kind of support. But I've used it the last couple of years to become very useful in my training for people who work and navigate with other folks. How do we become a support system for them? And how do we maintain, our own courage to try things that sometimes aren't always. So I'm going to share with you, just because I like it. It's called The Race. It was a day like the rest. Me sitting right there with the lost kids in another special class where we would fit the round pegs into square holes all day. As the teacher's excuse, we were made just that way. There's no need to be worried. You've no reason to stress. Your poor lives are not fair, so you just do your best. These last words they'd sing, then settle us all down, passing glue and round scissors for our popsicle stick crowns. And while crafting a band for my popsicle crown, I reached hand in the pocket and guess what I found? It was a note from my mother. Again, like last week, a reminder things don't have to stay as we see, written bold in block letters, more easily read. It still took me a while, but here's what that note said. I will love you each day like the first you were mine. But to change in their eyes, you must first change your mind. If you want new results, you can accept what they say about your needs and make them think this box is okay. But an eagle with chicks does not mean he's to blame, but it must when they fly some or fail just the same. To raise you up high any risk I would take with you, my dear boy, you must plan this escape. So keep your mind on your dreams and your eyes on that door. The inevitable victory could still be yours. Now, having no clue what that last line inferred, I returned to my crown without much of a word. But the next minute there, I spent disbelieving. No way could I see what my eyes were perceiving. A window just appeared where there had been none before among these walls and locks and peepholes and door. From where this thing came, I could hardly have guessed, but bright light, the cool breeze had all captured my breath. And outside the window, I heard sounds unknown, sounds of cheering and laughter and loud microphones. There were announcers announcing on their loudspeaker speaking, welcoming all the champions that came from last weekend. They said, today is today, and last week was back then. On a day like this, folks, anyone could still win. Now, looking back, I realized they did not expect me to take those words, that excitement, so personally. There's no control over the words that we say. Once out of the mouth, they translate their own way. Every ear that can hear must interpret for self. So I picked up my note and started up the bookshelf. Then I slid past the teacher and over the pane of the window before they could close it again. And I shimmied down columns just right for escaping and rushed myself over where people were pacing. I arrived at this field. Was amazed by the scene of these runners and jumpers on all types of teams. They were stretching and reaching after prepping for months to take the first challenge, to clear the high jump. And like antelope, they leaped. None knew fear or seemed hopeless, so I slipped into line praying no one would notice. But someone did see through my thin veil disguises. Might have been the boots or that scared look in my eyes. I said, please let me try this. It looks like a blast. Not like making those crowns from old popsicle trash, but judges hemmed and they hogged and explained the plain truth. Your talent, your build are not for this pursuit. So they removed me from line as the stars started starting. From up in the bleachers, big voices began barking. Maybe he's lightning, been bottled too long. You might think he's weak, but what if he is strong? Nobody will ever try as hard as he'll try. And even if he falls down, he most likely won't die. From what I can guess for new fans of mine. And my mother, who must have been there the whole time, came demands I be given one shot at that bar, despite having no chance to show talent thus far. So they made me some room and they let me back in, quite sure there was no way I could possibly win. But then the time came. I was finally on at the line with the silence so definitely long. In good humor, they played, started lowering the bar for this unknown, untested, not right superstar. But I whispered and waved, hey, you raise that way back. I can't break your records with a low jump like that. So rolling their eyes with their fiendish sly grins, they quick raised my bar all the way up to 10. As I watched them high five, I heard one of them say, you think that boy's smart enough to just walk away? But they all looked surprised. As in hiking boots clumping, I dashed to the mark they had set for my jumping. And with vision so clear, I could hardly see through it. I leapt for that bar as if nothing were to it. There I floated. No, I sailed. As the whole crowd stopped breathing, watching me attempt this, they were not quite believing. Now, I didn't quite make it over. Well, more truthful to say, see, I barely made half of the distance that day. But no sooner flat on the mat, I was pumping my fist, making it clear to the crowd I was quite new to this. But they could not have known from the big smile on my face that 5 feet had just crushed my best jump that day. It was 4 feet higher than the mark in 3rd grade where they started to track me and how I behaved. It was 2 feet higher than in middle school buzzing. They said, soon you'll be dead or in jail like your cousins. This mark was the highest that had ever been set. After trying, I knew I was not quite done yet. So I stopped my odd dancing and found the report there were kids lining up for some other great sport. But before I could make for the next crowded line, I was boxed and closed in by some old friends of mine. Sent to track down the fugitive boy from room 8 for a quiet return to his seat, to his place. And once back there, they tried to downplay the whole scene. Claiming that life, for me, is just a pipe dream. There are round pegs in your future. These square holes must be filled. It's good work for the hands and your particular skills. So I sat there a while thinking, maybe it's best that they rescued and brought me safe back to this desk. Then I looked and took note of all the names I could see of the kids they had rescued and returned before me. There was Carla and Derek, John Tilson's name twice, Rashida, Raimundo, and my long lost friend Mike. So many more names I could not recognize, including one signed A. Lincoln since 1825. In the top right-hand corner, between all of those lines, there was just enough space left to finally make this seat mine. But before eyes could get back to the early blank state, I remember the sound from those fans at the race where my mother stood shouting, waving banners sky high. So what if you fall down, boy? You most likely won't die. And a strange current shook and swept right over me. I grabbed a handful of crayons and big butcher sheet. I began to draft up things I longed for to speak. I said, Mark, for 1 hour, 1 day, then 1 week. And with those popsicle sticks, I began to build up a small room. When complete was a full replica of this box, where some said I would live my life out. Where no one would see my sad face or would hear my mad shout, and inside of that model, where a pretty one red X on the wall where that window must be. Then looking around like I'd not done before, I spied keys to the lock on a chain by the door, and since all the teachers were busy, passing more crayons and paste, I just left a note on their desk. Going to find my next race. Going to find my next race. The race, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I wrote this as a tribute to all the folk who refused to give up on possibility. Not just those running the race, but those courageous enough to set it up, to create the space, to advocate for the possibility, not to guarantee the possibility of what could happen if we lean in and create for those who have been removed either by their own choices or by the choices of their community? How do we create space to ensure that all means all, nurturing positive engagement, hope-centered systems? Hope-centered systems more easily intentionally recognize the inherent worth potential of youth, adults, and families they serve, are proactive in identifying environmental supports that inspire the growth and development of the people they serve, provide multiple pathways to accomplish integration or reintegration to the larger community, and encourage clients to seek and adopt new skills and navigate their circumstances. Most of the work that I do now for systems is building these hope-centered frameworks that allow us to lean in faster. I'm just going to give you a quick hit of what hope, the framework, science of it is: desire, decision, direction. First, we have to desire something different than what we have. We have to choose to act on it, and then we have to have a path for it. Those are the key components of hope as an operational idea. The story of the hound dog on the porch. You ever heard that story? The old man, the hound dog on the porch is always well. The woman's running by every day, and she runs. The dog says, giving all these guys. One day she stops. I'm sorry, sir. Every day I run past his house. That old dog is like he's just on his deathbed. And you're just sitting there, calm. He's just rocking. He's like, yep. He said, well, what's the problem? He says, well, problem is he's been laying in that spot for the last 10 years every day, and he's got so used to it, he wore the wood out, and there's a nail poking out. He said, well, why did you come back? He said, ain't nothing for me to do. Apparently it don't hurt enough for him to move. Right? Sometimes that's what it is for us. It hurts, but it's the hurt that we know. It's the pain that we know. And so until we get that point where we desire something different and ready to act on it, the decision to act on it, then we need pathways. For me, this is the thing that led me to Berea. I didn't want to be that big guy in the corner. I didn't want to be public enemy number one. I didn't want to be the 11 o'clock news story. Heard about this place, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go. Sight unseen, it's completely off my radar. In Kentucky, of all places, right? You know what I knew about Kentucky? Not a thing. You know, I've seen Deliverance. I've seen the Beverly Hillbillies, right? I mean, let's just be real, right? Coming from the streets of Atlanta, my assumption I rolled up in here, and especially I started engaging with people. I'll tell you a story. Buddy of mine, he's a buddy of mine now, but when I first met him, his name's Eric from Floyd County. I first met him, he says, hey man, my name is Eric, what's your name? I was like, my name is Hasan. He was like, okay, Haas. I was like, I'm sorry. I said, Hasan, because all I heard was Haas. So in my head, immediately, I thought this was disrespectful. There was this guy, you know, he's from Floyd County, good old boy. I mean, he was like as good old as the boy gets, right? He had a big chunk of tar in his mouth, had a Mountain Dew and a ball cap on. And I'm like, he's just like looking at me. So in my head, it's like, this is my public enemy number one, right? And so every time I see him, he's like, what's up, Haas? I'm like, hey, man, I told you, my name is Hasan. And I'm not usually that calm with people, but I'm trying to stay in Kentucky and not get run out. And one day I'm in the dorm and I hear this, yo, Haas, behind me. I know it's him because he's going to call him there. So I turn around dramatic, right? I'm like, this is the day. And he's like, we going to Papalino's, man. You want to go? And I was like, no, thank you. I don't have any money, trying to keep it short because I'm about to lose my stuff on him. And I turn around dramatically to walk away. And he goes, yo, Haas. I was like, okay, I guess this is the day, right? All right, let's do this. I turned around, and I started walking forward. And he said, I didn't ask if you had any money, man. I asked if you wanted to go to Papalino's and have pizza with me and the rest of my friends. Checking my assumption. The people that didn't look like me, talk like me, come from where I come from, couldn't be down with me, couldn't believe me, couldn't support me, couldn't be a part of my success plan. And 40 years later, Eric's on speed dial, roll out. And the people here know. And, you know, and so it's one of those things that as I navigate, I learned, and it became the lifeline. This became the place I wanted to run back to because it gave me a path from who I was to who I dreamed. It gave me the opportunity to go from Berea to law school. And in law school, there's all kinds of shenanigans and things that went on, but from there to then work in Lexington, I headed the Youth Violence Prevention Task Force. Actually, I came back to Berea, first worked with John Cook in admission for a year, which is pretty cool. And then I went to work for Pam Miller, Mayor Miller in Lexington, head up Youth Violence Prevention Task Force there for a couple of years before I moved back and started doing my justice work. And at some point, got called up by Governor Bashir. But the path has been amazing because of the people who have been in it, the opportunities that have come from it. This is just hope conversation. Thing I want to make sure I leave you with is the idea that we have to keep moving. We have to be innovative. We have to make sure that things that we're resisting, I always love this, always talk about the insanity principle. Two is always before, no matter how much you pray for something different, you get equal sign and calculus, it's not the same. The only way you change it is to change the equation. In order for us to get the results different, what we've been getting with our young people, with our community, with the folks that we're trying to stabilize in our communities, is that we get innovative, get creative, we try something different. You can always go back to what didn't work. And, you know, John Maxwell says the best, keep doing what you've been doing, your competition gets better and you get worse results. So not even the 57 game, we start to lose with our young folks, we start to use with our new population, we start to use our new young workers when we're not innovating to create things that capture their imagination and possibility. We got to keep raising the bar. They don't need our pity, they need our empathy. I always thought this, we'll talk about this because I talk about this a lot of work. We always talk about having people that are work ready. And sometimes we get frustrated because we say, well, they ought to show up ready to do stuff. And I always say, well, tell me all the places where people ought to show up ready to do stuff, right? You can't show up ready to cook a good meal without having some training. You can't just jump on the hood of a car and start fixing it, you know, but somehow we have this magical thinking. But the only place that you find that ability comes before opportunity is the dictionary. Every place else, we got to do the work. We got to create opportunities. We got to create a feeder system. We got to create internships and apprenticeships and chances for people to try new things and to fail at new things in order to really get to their next best thing. But hope is the thing that ties it all together with families, with community. Hope dealers choose to inspire courage. That's my mama. I know she looks like my girlfriend or a baby sister, but that's back in the day. We used to all get the Six Flags for kids' race. If you missed her in the story, that's her. Hope dealers choose to nurture the strength to keep reaching for what others feel couldn't be reached. That's Dr. Rain Wilson. You missed her in the story, that's her. They like this, folks, anyone can still win. And where are you? Cheering on the next innovation, demanding the opportunity for engagement, for folks to step up, to lean in, to be a part of something greater than themselves, because it serves all of us better. We have to make a choice, be hope dealers or hope stealers. If you choose to be a hope dealer, you got to have hope, because you can't give what you don't have. Father Keller once said that a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. Got a couple minutes. I want to share something with you real quick as I finish up. One of the things I didn't get a chance to talk to you more about is, one of the things I also do is I do visitation interpretation, tell the story of African Americans and American history. For the last 35 years, I've told the story of York, of the Lucy Clark expedition, and Angus Burley. My very first one was Angus Burley, who was Berea College's first African American graduate. He escaped enslavement in Anderson County, joined the Union Army in Jessamine County at Camp Nelson. After the war, Reverend John P., the founder of Berea, invited him to come to Berea when he reopened. John P. was his legal guardian, and he raised him up through Berea. He went on to become a minister and educator across the nation. I tell the story of York and the Lewis and Clark expedition. York was the only African-American member. From day one to day done, he was there. And so for the last 25 years, I've told that story. During the bicentennial of Lewis and Clark, I was actually invited by the National Park and Department of Interior of the United States to be York for the bicentennial. So I was York for the nation, telling his story across the country. Side by side with William Clark's 8th generation descendant Bud, reenacting that experience and talking about the fact that in that unique environment, how powerful it was for all those men and women to stand together for this singular mission, in spite of generational difference, in spite of economic difference, in spite of social status difference, racial difference, gender difference. They stood and moved forward the ideal of building and building out this thing that was laid out by the Declaration of Independence. And during that time, I was on the trail, on the Lewis and Clark Trail, on the bicentennial for like years. And so the thing that I would do while I was on tour, the first thing I do when I get to a new town, I figure out where Walmart is. Walmart, my safe place, because my brain only shuts down a few hours a night. And so I need someplace to go. I'm in all these little towns all over the country. Walmart was like always there and always open. Well, it used to be always open. Y'all have this experience now where Walmart's closed? Last year was the first time I experienced it. I walk into a Walmart, like literally at Walmart, the doors don't open. There's a guy there, both of them like, hey man, the door's closed. And he was like, I'm sorry, we're closed. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I didn't know you had locks on these doors, right? I've never seen a Walmart closed, but they close now. But back in the day, no matter what was in the country, Walmart was my favorite. So I'm in Camden, Idaho, edge of the Nez First Nation Reservation. The nearest Walmart is Lewiston, Idaho, an hour and a half drive away. And so this is my routine for the week. I do school programs during the day. I do lectures in the afternoon. I do main stage performance at night. I drive an hour and a half to Lewiston. I hang out at Walmart for a few hours. I drive an hour and a half back, sleep for a few hours, repeat. About 3 days into this, I walk into Walmart. Hey, Joe. Hey, Frank. I know everybody in Walmart after 3 days, Joe. Hey, Hasan. What's going on? So I'm walking around. I look up and I see this sign I have not seen before. It just says discard in really big dystopian letters. And I got curious. So I walk toward it and I get to the fabric section. And there's a table beneath the sign with one piece of fabric neatly folded and placed on the discard table, like the most unwanted piece of fabric in the state of Idaho. So I picked it up. I'm walking around with it for a couple of hours. I'm headed toward the register. Joe is looking at me funny. So I got some gum, just show up for the fabric. I'm like, don't judge me, dude. I'll see you tomorrow. Since then, 25 years now, I've carried this with me around the world. So as I finish up here, I was hoping maybe y'all could give me a couple of ideas, things I could do to kind of justify the dollar I spent. So any ideas you got, just throw them out. Unrules, you can't all speak at once.
A blanket.
A blanket. Oh yeah, this could be like, well, so there's two kind of blankets. It could be like grandma, me and mom like, baby, who turned off the heat? Right? Or it could be like, what else? Tape. I love tape. Anybody here like comic books? I love comics. I have 21,000 comics in my comic collection. 21,000. My wife says I have an issue. And I'm like, after 30 years with all of this, baby, if that's all you got, we good. I love you. Right? You ever know when people put tapes on, the first thing that happens is their voices change. They start to say words like just because tapes make you cool. What else?
Apron.
Apron, yeah, if you like kiss the cut, right? What else? Huh? Scarf, yeah. Here's what I learned about scarves. It is all about the throat. If you don't get the throat right, you should have a rag around your neck, and people do know the difference, right? All right, what else? Huh?
Belt.
A belt, yeah, this could be a belt. Or it could be, no, it's a sash, right? It's a sash. It's a belt. Y'all are nice. Whenever I do this, like in the middle school, there's always that one kid who's being guarded by like 5 teachers who breaks away. And he's like, diaper! And everybody's like, oh my goodness, now what you gonna do? I'm always like, you know what? I ain't scared of no diaper. I got this. No, the truth is, the plain old piece of cloth about the Walmart store, it cost me $1. Had a student ask me once, Mr. B, why did you waste your money on that ugly thing? We laughed about it, and I thought it was a fair question. So next time I came to visit, I'd have an answer. My next visit, I said, I figured it out. When I walked into that Walmart fabric section and saw the discard table, don't nobody want to take more value to a table. I picked that fabric up with urgency because I remember, just for a second, I remember what it's like to be put on a table like that. For somebody to randomly say, well, we done. Go on ahead, toss that out. It ain't got no more use. And I was so determined to show whoever was so short-sighted how much they missed. See, I call this my anything cloth because it's a proper application of imagination, of creativity. There's no limit to possibilities. Just like that vision my mother had in the police car, in the car coming from the police station. And Dr. Wayne Wilson, years later in that office, I call it the double vision, the ability to see the present, the truth of what is in front of you for what it is, and at the same time still imagine the possible, the usefulness of it, if we invest, if we commit, if we create a desire, try to act on it, in that direction, be moving towards something more useful, more valuable, more purposeful. Father Keller once said that a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. But it immediately multiplies the light, immediately divides the darkness. I'm not going to talk about gators because I'm running out of time. But Johann Wolfgang von Goethe once said that if you treat a man as he is, he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be, he will become as he can and should be. The same lesson as the cloth, right? What is just the start of what's possible. And with you all, I imagine every day that is the conversation. What is in our communities, and how do we invest and create the possible pathway, preparation, hope that young people, that community people will lean into building the community we deserve instead of just accepting what we've inherited. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be with you, for your work. You know, my wife runs Partners for Real Impact, which has been doing a lot lately with internships and apprenticeships, working with the Department of Labor, trying to figure out, especially with all this chaos going on now, how to keep supporting young people and families across the region in a way that allows every one of us to imagine ourselves greater and then reach for that. So the fact that you all show up every day with that commitment to building community, creating possibility, the possibility, that's the thing that we get caught up on, right? There are no guarantees. We can't make people work, but we can make sure that work is ready for the people that show up. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And I hope you have a great day. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're gonna take a little break, about a 15-20 minute break. As I said, restrooms are there, there's water, there's coffee over there, there's no juices back there right now, but we'll get those in a minute if someone wants juice, but everybody just take a break for a second.